I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. For those of you watching from home, if you would like to send questions or comments during the meeting, you can send them to emorgan@easthaddonlibrarysystem.org, and we will address them during the audience of citizens. So our first order of business is April 10 minutes. Does anyone have any changes?
Mary, can you turn off the sound change television? This is broadcasting.
Does anyone have any discussion? All right, then they are submitted as presented. And today we have a guest speaker, Maureen Sullivan, who's joining us. She's going to talk about the IMLS cuts to the state library system. So I'll turn the floor over to you.
So I have just brief remarks, because I was thinking that what you would most want is the opportunity to ask questions. But you're probably all aware that the Institute for Museum and Library Services is the agency at the federal level that provides funding to support libraries and museums. And the most important part of the program for libraries in Connecticut is the Grants to States program. And that is an allocation that comes every year to the state of Connecticut, and it actually goes directly to the state library. And then the state library determines how that money is going to be apportioned. And I'm going to just make a brief statement here about this. There are questions among library leaders in Connecticut about just how that money is apportioned. There isn't real clarity the way library leaders would like to have it be the case. So there is an effort on the part of some of those library leaders now to try to understand what those allocations would be. And I know from my own work as a consultant to several state libraries that there are different patterns. And those decisions, I presume, are made based on what those who make the decisions think would be important here in Connecticut. And I'm really happy to have this opportunity to be with you this evening. But the reason I didn't want to come by myself last month is because Evelyn is the person who is most on top of this. You're one of my sources for what's happening. But what's particularly raised this issue now is the current administration determined that the Institute for Museum and Library Services funding would be pulled. And Connecticut was one of 3 states where the message was sent first that their funding was going to come to an end. That funding has been restored, not yet physically restored, but the decision's been made that the money is coming back, or will continue, I guess is the way I should put it. But we still need to wait and see how that's actually going to happen. And I learned just today in a conversation with the state library in Kentucky that there is work proceeding for the reauthorization of the money, because this is important to ensure that Congress is continuing to allocate the funding for libraries. And you may also know that every year in the first Trump administration, the president was, in his budget, zeroing out the funding for IMLS, but then it was put back. And at least once that I'm aware of, and it might have happened more than once, the amount was actually increased. But it's a serious issue because most of the funding for libraries in this state and in other states is coming from the municipalities. And whenever there is an opportunity at the federal level to think about library development, what's really important to support library service to people at the state level, the funding that comes from the Institute for Museum and Library Services was really important. And it's a really useful way to ensure that there is some standardization in library service across the country. And I don't know what you would add to what I just said.
Well, actually, we don't depend on the federal funding too much as a municipal library, and don't currently have any grants that we're going to lose because the new library fund that we could apply for to the state library to build a new library is actually state bonded fund, so that also would not be affected by the IMLS. The one thing that we would really miss is the C-card, they call it, which is the transportation of books among libraries. We belong to Lion, and we get most of our books through the Lion transportation system, but there's another statewide kinetic car that travels and brings books from other libraries that are not part of Lion, which is quite a few. So if anyone returned books from another library and they weren't a part of Lion, you would have trouble getting them if you don't have C-card.
And that C-card program is
C, they call it C-card. Car.
Oh, C-card.
C, like the capital of Connecticut.
It's really important to many library users, and therefore it's important to library leaders, because it's a way of ensuring that if you take something out from one library and you can't get back to return it, you have the opportunity to return it through that system. And the term that's always used to describe this is delivery. Delivery is a core service as far as most library leaders are concerned.
Why was Connecticut one of the first to be told the cut was coming?
I don't think we know that yet, but it was Connecticut, Washington State, and California.
And is it unusual that you don't know about the allocation schedule in this new administration, or is this just because suddenly it's threatened and the allocation is not understood, people are kind of trying to hammer it down?
I think it's the latter. Because what people are trying to understand is, what are the ramifications of this?
Well, the museums would be impacted,
Yeah.
because I read something about, it was an ongoing grant, like a 3-year grant, now they didn't know if they were gonna get their 3rd year or something, like maybe it's Mark Twain.
The other thing it's triggered in some places is starting to really look at what kind of funding do we have that we could bring in that would replace what it is that we're going to lose.
I know they're allocated to various different things, but and I understand the kinetic car delivery, what are some of the other things that have been past allocations, just to understand potential impacts to the state at a broader level?
Well, one of the places that there is a lot of funding is for professional development programs. The Connecticut State Library has a division of library development, and there are regular announcements of programs that are available. Many of them now webinars, they're through virtual means, and a number of them coming from OCLC, which is a provider of a whole variety of different services. What else? Do you think of anything else?
The Library Service Center, Middletown?
Yeah, I was just
Yeah.
going to mention that.
Yeah.
We don't use them a lot, but they do have amazing resources
What is
available
that?
to us. It's the Service Center in Middletown, Connecticut has whole collections that you can borrow. So if you want to have a book discussion group and you want a collection of books on a particular subject, you can get them. They also have toys that they will let you borrow for story hours, and it's really quite an amazing place. So books and toys and all kinds of things. And they also teach classes there sometimes. So
Where in Middletown?
it's right, do you know where the new Big Y is on South Main
Yeah.
Street?
Yeah, it's right next door.
Yeah.
When I was working in a school system, I used them constantly. They were fabulous.
Yeah.
Okay, and so what, do you have any idea what kind of dollar amount you're talking about? Like how large a sum does the state library normally get from the federal government? I mean, is it a huge part of their budget, 2% of their budget, overall
It's about
budget?
$2 million.
That's what I was going to
Yeah.
say, about $2 million.
It's about $2 million, and I don't know what their total budget
Yeah,
is.
I thought I read somewhere like 2.3 million or something.
Yeah, and I think when I was the interim state librarian, it was just under 10 million.
Okay, so it's a significant
Significant.
chunk. Okay, it's not just peripheral
Right.
extras, it's core functionality. Okay. And is there any action that we can take in any way to make sure that this funding continues? I mean, we can't sending stuff to our state representative only gets so far. So is our best strategy is just to prepare for it going away?
So I think that's important, but also there's an effort on the part of the Connecticut Library Association to develop talking points and to ask people like you, board members, to use those talking points to make the case to, and it would be the federal, the congressional people as well as people in the state legislature.
And the senators too, like, Senator Murphy, Blumenthal.
We're really
A
lucky.
letter from the trustees, maybe? I don't
Yeah,
know.
that would probably have some importance. But we're really fortunate in this state because both of those senators understand what this
Right.
is.
Yeah.
And I know personally that John Larson and Joe Courtney understand the needs and the issues, so.
Maybe that's why we got a letter first.
I wonder. I wonder. And I was telling Evelyn, I watched the testimony today in the Senate committee on, there's a bill in front of the legislature that would require libraries to have contracts with publishers where the publishers were offering a fair price for ebooks. And what was really heartening was to see the testimony coming from the members of the Senate. Tony Wang, who's a Republican from Fairfield County, gave a very good talk about why libraries are important and why it's important to have fair pricing. And Mae Flexer was the other person who was taking the lead in the discussion. Really good. And as a librarian, to hear the description of the importance of libraries in our communities was really hard.
Okay. Well, that's hopeful.
Yes.
All right. Does anyone have any questions? Further
The
questions?
other thing this board needs to do is to continue to employ Evelyn.
Well, we're trying to increase our staffing so that we don't, kill
Burn
her.
her out,
She doesn't have to work 3 jobs at once.
I did have a chance to read the latest issue of the news before coming here and saw the budget proposal.
Oh, I haven't had a chance to read that myself yet.
Oh,
I haven't either.
it's showing an increase in the request for this year.
Yeah.
Good.
It is amazing what those 2 facilities do.
Yeah, I mean, when I first was on the library board, before it was a town board, and I was on the Rathbun Library Board, when I first got on the board, I'm like, you're kidding me, this is all the money?
Yeah.
All the money we have? Yeah.
It's less than what they cut from, the whole operating budget is,
Yeah.
the whole budget is less than what they cut from the school
Mhm.
of ed budget.
Yeah.
Well, it is, it's amazing you provide so much with the little bit of funding, it's incredible.
And it's really the staff, I really have to say,
It is.
there's a really good staff in place that really, at both branches, that really cares about the library. Everybody there really, and they kept it going when we were going, when there was so much turnover here. It wasn't easy for them
Yeah.
to keep things going as smoothly as they did, but they really did, and I really appreciate that.
And the new website is just phenomenal.
Yeah, it's good.
I like it so much, I look at it every couple of days, just to see what's there.
We like having it on display instead of the other one,
Yeah, it's good.
which was good in its time, but
Yeah, it was time.
it was time for change.
Yeah.
All right. Any questions for Maureen? All right, well, thank you so much for joining us and giving us,
Pleasure.
and clearing that up for us. Idea what's going on.
We stay in pretty regular touch, so.
We have coffee every once in a
We do,
while.
yes.
2 wrestling cats.
Okay. Solve the problems of the world. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will depart and
Thanks
have
for
dinner with
coming.
my husband.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that was a treat. Good. Not so nervous about it now. All right, so that brings us to our director's report.
Okay. Mostly this month, we've been working on the budget hearings and also on the community conversation about conflict, which is what it has been changed to. And they're both moving forward, which is good news. I went to both public hearings, and almost all the comments from everybody were asking them to not cut budgets, that we were at bare bones, and that everyone needs more money and to stop cutting. And of course, there were one or two people that really, I know there are people that have trouble paying a higher tax, so they did speak out a little bit, but really all of there were so many students that came and so many other people associated with the school. They just turned out. How many people were there, would you say? Maybe 50 or so? Seemed to me.
Probably more than that, at least the first meeting. I didn't go to the second one.
Yeah, the second one wasn't as big, but
Yeah, the second
there-
one wasn't as big, but they sent in a handful of letters and,
right.
yeah.
And so the
There's a
school
lot
had
of
the
public
students
comment.
write
Yeah.
letters saying why the budget shouldn't be cut, really heartfelt letters. It took them an hour to read them all.
Oh, God, poor Todd.
But there really was a lot of support for the Board of Ed there and for town budgets in general, I felt, which is good news. But we don't know, there's going to be, hopefully, I don't know if it's been ruled yet, but they would like to have a question on the vote when it comes to the town vote as to whether people want to vote. If they vote no, is it because it's too high a budget or because it's too low a budget? Because right now, there's no way they would know that.
Because by default, in the past, they've always assumed too high. And
Right.
That's the argument, yeah.
So we won't know until the budget is voted on whether it all passes or not. But so far, so
And the
good.
vote is May 27th,
Mhm.
in case anyone wants to.
Okay.
Town meeting to move it to referendum is next.
And then the community conversation that I'm part of had its final meeting with the Justice Department. And we spent time planning specific community events that will hopefully bring the community together. It's supposed to be a place where people will get to know each other in ways they haven't, get to know neighbors, get to know other places in the community, get to know people. And one of the ideas that came up that my group really liked a lot was an international potluck, where people could bring food from whatever their background is and maybe talk about how it's presented as maybe some holiday, or just talk about their culture, and we could try different food from many different places. So that might be one of the things that they bring. And just as a side note, at the end of it all, the library is really well positioned to participate in things like that. And they look to the library as a leader for things that bring people together, which I was glad to see. And at the end of the last meeting that we had, they asked, we have to find a place to meet regularly, the planning group. And there's about 25 or 30 people that are currently involved. And they wanted to know if they could meet in the library. And I had to say no, because this one person that's, at least one, that has mobility issues, and then there's really no one place big enough for us to meet easily. But that's the perfect reason we need a new library, because it should be the head of community programs like this. So I thought
Plus,
that-
you never park 20 cars in the parking lot.
True.
I stopped down the Rathbun, actually, went to the post office Tuesday. It was earlier this week, and there was cars parked all over the place in the library. The 3 slots in the post office were full. I parked across the street. I went into the post office. There was nobody in there. It was people parked in the post office, apparently, to go into the library.
Well, that's good to hear.
Was there a program maybe
I
going on?
assume
Which
there
day was that? Tuesday?
Tuesday, I think. Tuesday morning?
Yeah, we had, Haley had a special program that morning.
Yeah, there was cars everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Which is great.
I was like, I can't believe nobody's complained about parking when
Yeah.
there's like no space there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting.
We do have people that complain every once in a while. And, okay. Other activities this month. The library's website just rolled out, and had pages and staff have all said that they love it. And I had other library directors look at it when I was on a Zoom with other new directors, and one of them just pulled it up just to look at it while we were all talking, and she interrupted everybody and said, "Hey guys, you have to look at this. It dances when you open it." Because the brochures kind of make a little movement, so it's really clever. And I really appreciate the work that Janet Calandria did and John in looking through all of the links to make sure they all worked, and Anastasia for fixing the ones that didn't, and for everyone that made comments and suggestions. I think it's a big success, so lots of enthusiasm. The Friends of the Rathbun and the Friends of the EHFPL Library are busy planning programs, and this past weekend, the Rathbun Friends sponsored an artist who creates beautiful miniature silhouettes, and she does it freehand. She doesn't make a silhouette. She just has the child sit in profile on the mother's lap, and she holds up a piece of paper and she cuts around it. I mean, it's just incredible, and they're beautiful. I mean, they really capture the essence of the child. It's really remarkable. So it was full all day. I went at the beginning and the end to make sure it went smoothly, and she had someone almost every 15 minutes from 10 until 3.
Wow.
So that was a big success. The words from the Woods Book Circle is still welcoming new people, and we're still meeting across the street at St. Stephen because we don't have room in the library for them. And our next book is The Service Fairy, Abundance and Reciprocity in the Natural World. And you can borrow a book from the library. We borrow them through interlibrary loans, so we have several copies if anyone wants to look at one and just join this one discussion, or come if you haven't read it, you're welcome. And the Goodspeed Opera House is again offering the popular Goodspeed Good Neighbor program and providing vouchers for unsold tickets just for that week. So if you could, on a Monday, you can find out if there are any unsold tickets just for that week. But they're beginning to sell out this current production also, so they may not have very many, but it's a really popular program. And then just 2 little vignettes that make me very happy I work in the library. One was the Middlesex Foundation gave our libraries the nesting balls again that have the big twig kind of empty balls that are filled with alpaca fur. And so the birds can pull out the fur and do it to line their nests. And then we have a raffle and let people win them, free, no charge. And this little 5-year-old was sitting outside with her mother when I walked out the door. She said, "Oh, look what I got." And she was holding it up, and she was just so excited about this. She said, "It's for the birds." And I said, "Yes, and the baby birds are going to have a nice soft bed," and she was feeling it. She just loved it. So that was exciting. And then another use we have going on right now is we have a student studying for the MCAT exams, which is the medical exams. And that person said it's really noisy at home, and he's so happy he can come in and study in the library where it's quiet, usually.
Usually.
But at least it's not things that interrupt him. And then, the library, we have a lot of people that come into, they have to fax forms, maybe they want fuel assistance, they need help printing out things. A lot of people don't have printers anymore. I'm surprised how many people depend on the library printers. Or they have a new phone and they need some tech advice. So we do all of those things in addition to loaning books and.
The art exhibit was excellent.
And the art exhibit,
oh my gosh,
yes,
it
the
was
spring
so
art show
impressive.
by the East Haddam Art League is just lovely. It really is. And then we have our little tiny art exhibit going on too, and those are amazing. Some of them are really beautiful. And they're at both libraries, so you can go in and check those out. And so the budget, we don't know much yet. We don't know if we'll get our budget for FY26 until it's voted on, but so far it has survived without being cut. So, and I just want to thank you all for your support this past year. It's really helped, so thank you.
Thank you. Has it been a full year?
As of March 4th.
Oh,
Wow,
yeah.
congratulations.
Yes, thank you. You're very brave. Very brave.
I made it.
More like amazing.
All right, does anyone have any questions for Evelyn? Okay. All right, so that brings us to Finance Committee report. We did not meet this month. I had a scheduling conflict, and there just hasn't been much change. We weren't going to know anything until after last Tuesday, so nothing to report there. So that brings us to governance.
Okay, so we did meet, we talked about the upcoming municipal election again. And as we all know, there are 4 open seats, 3 of them 6-year terms and 2-year terms, and just ensuring that if candidates come up, that we are recommending them, particularly looking for Republican candidate at this point, if anybody is library patron or interested, and passing that information on to the RTC. We also talked about the annual survey for the director, and I'll send that out to all of you guys this month. And it's just for us to sit down and the official reviews with the first selectman, of course, but to give some feedback to our wonderful director. So you can expect that from me at some point this month. And the director also reported, Evelyn reported, that staff evaluations are in progress and going well. And we will work on our annual manual review starting in July.
All right, sounds good. Any questions regarding that? All right, so that moves on to the Public Relations Committee.
Yes, we were scheduled to meet yesterday, and that meeting was canceled. And our next meeting is going to be on June 4th at 2:30, and again, it's going to be at the Rathbun Library. And hopefully, we'll still be able to meet upstairs and in that area. But nothing to report, and hopefully we'll hit the floor running in June and come up with a lot of good ideas and go forward for the rest of the year.
Okay, thank you. And that brings us to Friends Liaison Report. So, Mary, while we have you, do you have a liaison report?
Yes, I'm going to reiterate a little bit that Evelyn touched on just how successful the Silhouette Lady was, and the reading that I got back was there were over 25 participants, but sitting for 3.5, 5 hours, 15 minutes, there probably were a lot more than that 25. So again, that's a really wonderful asset to have at our library, especially right before Mother's Day. And hopefully they'll be able to get the woman back to do the silhouettes next year also. What they did discuss at the meeting too is all the upcoming events and who was going to participate, who was going to collect money, who was going to do the advertising, and they had this sign-up list, or people were being volunteered if they weren't there to participate in some of the upcoming functions and what their job would be and what their responsibility would be going forward. The committee also talked about buying additional signboards, and I'm assuming, I don't know for sure where they wanted to put them, but they were talking that they wanted to buy some more boards, and also they want to purchase a banner to advertise the upcoming Tanglewood puppet performance that's going to take place in July, and that puppet show is going to be Cinderella. So, it'd be wonderful to be able to get that information out to all the schools and around town, to some of the other, some of the other avenues to get more people to come in to enjoy that puppet show. Also at that meeting, it was discussed that Evelyn was going to talk to the selectmen or to the people that in charge of the Grange to see whether or not we could have the Ferry House building program that is scheduled in the fall from the Flo Grizz Museum, if they could actually do that program at the Grange. A lot of people were at the last workshop, and it was a little bit crowded, and it would be really great if they had a bigger space to actually, spread everybody out and work. The other thing that they were discussing is that the 3 upcoming programs that are at the museum in conjunction with the East Haddam, with the Moose Library, whether or not they were going to work in conjunction with the library to buy little favors or little remembrances to hand out at 2 of the functions. They thought that they could come up with something for the Mr. Bubbles and also for the shark exhibit, which was going to take place in July. But they did decide that they were not going to try to come up with some kind of a souvenir or trinket for the poop demonstration, which I thought would be a challenging thing if they could come up with something for that. But that's going to be in August, and they're going to work with the other Friends group to coordinate to see what little souvenir we could hand out to the children when they attended these exhibits. The first one is going to be in June, that's Mr. Bubbles, and then July will be the sharks, and of course in August is going to be the poop demonstration. And again, these are all being held at the museum, historical museum, in conjunction with the other Friends group. And that's all I have so far.
Mary, you might talk to Barbara Kiley or have somebody from our group, because she found a place to order those big banners.
Oh, okay. Barbara Carvey, okay.
Yeah.
And I'd like just to add one more thing about the silhouette lady. She needed somebody to glue the silhouettes onto paper, and so Anastasia was scheduled to work that day, so Anastasia agreed to do it, and she did that from 10 until 3. And she did a wonderful job. She's really very good with her hands, and she did a great job, and they were very happy with the outcome, so she was a big part of that too.
All right. All right, does anyone have any questions for Mary? No? All right, thank you, Mary.
You're welcome.
And that brings us to Carrie.
The book sale donations are going to start June 17th. They can be dropped off at First Church between 10 and 12. There's going to be a notice put in the paper about dropping off the books.
At what church?
First Church, the congregational one.
And is that, what day of the week was that again?
I think it's a Tuesday.
Tuesday, June 17th.
Thank you.
10 to 12.
Thank you. They've got the 2 vendors that we had last year coming back, the woman who sold birdhouses, and she basically sold out of her birdhouses and had to quickly make more for the following week for the holiday fair, and the woman who made soaps in all different animals and creatures, and she actually had made a little stack of books just because it's for the library. The author showcase, we met on the 1st, and we'll be meeting on the first Thursday at the Rathbun at 5:30, and we're looking into trying to find a bunch of new authors. Just keep some of the old ones from last year, but looking at getting new ones. And if anybody would like to join us, we wouldn't mind. And we're going to look for having a food truck of some kind. Not maybe the woman who did the holiday market last year. It's not a real food truck, but she does do food on a small basis, to have her out there. Because that was one of the things a lot of the vendors last year, book people said, they'd like to see this food, a food truck or something.
Do you need a permit for that? And
She would know. 'Cause
yeah, I think just
yeah,
because I know that if you don't have permits, sometimes you get sent home.
Because she did it last year.
Yeah.
So, and Janet was is kind of head of the holiday fair, so
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure she would know all that.
Yeah.
Mary covered a lot of the things. We're sponsoring the shark program, and we will have goodie bags for that. Both groups, again, are doing the Cinderella, and that's July 26th. July 29th is the shark program.
Shark teeth would be good.
Where is the puppet thing? At the
I think
historical?
they're gonna have it at the high school, because they have to have a stage.
Yes.
And August 11th is the Poop Museum, and they're still working on what to give out for that. We're hoping to get a friends gathering, just the friends in a neutral territory, like at one of the restaurants at some point. And I've passed that on and asked Janet to talk to Pat at the Rathbun because she was the one who brought it to my attention. So I don't want anything else. We're also going to look at making a joint friends brochure to hand out at different things and even in the library. And we're gonna put Anastasia and Chuck, because she's very good at creating, and I get a couple of them, we'll look at and keep, check it out and see. And where she's at both libraries, it works. And the last thing is, we do a children's drawing twice a month, in August and July and August. We get toys, and when the kids come in and get a book, they get a ticket and they can put it out. So they'll be doing that again this year. I can see you smiling.
My daughter's gonna be excited. All right, well, between both friends groups, there is a lot going on. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Carrie before we move on?
Empty boxes will be needed too,
Oh, okay.
and not big ones, nice.
Yeah.
And we will need definitely people to help get the books from the church to the Grange. I'm not sure, it'll be the Thursday before Columbus Day weekend.
Okay,
I don't know the date right off.
all right.
They usually do that, I'm not sure in the morning,
The
I'm
9th.
always at work, so.
October
Um,
9th.
The night, yes, the day of the Lord.
Okay. Books. All right. So that brings us to unfinished business. Anything new with the internship program?
It's in the budget.
In the budget, yes.
How long is Caitlin able to work till?
We'll keep her as long as she wants to continue working.
There's
It's
no-
been approved as a position once
Okay.
the
So
funding
she would
runs
be
out.
covered, good.
Okay. Let's see, Evelyn already talked about the current budget, and we know where we're at with the upcoming budget. So CLC, Strategic Planning Cohort, anything new with that, or is it all?
We've set our objectives and we're meeting them, and at the next meeting, I'll do a report and show exactly what
Okay,
we've done for this past year.
nice, okay. Let's see, presentation boards for the new library facility, so that's off the table?
Yes, I had a meeting with Irene about something else, and then she brought up the posters, and we were talking about them, and I agree with her that this is not the right environment to ask for a brand-new building when we're having to build 14, gonna have to vote on a fire station.
Mm-hmm.
So she still thinks the MLC would be a great place because it's available and it's
Say that again, I'm sorry.
the downstairs.
The basement.
So we had a good conversation about it. She does have some valid points, and then I said, is there another building that the town owns that we might be able to renovate? And she said, well, maybe the elementary school if we actually went to a,
Two-school solution.
if we went to a regional school, which is perhaps in the future at some point, I don't know when or.
Yeah, at one point they talked about eliminating a school, and that's the oldest one.
Right. So.
That's like not even on the table.
Yeah, so
That
so
is
ba-
so
basically,
funny.
so
She
it
just
does-
reaches
it's
into
it's
our
off the
hat.
table.
Well, that
Yeah,
was me. I
so-
brought it up. It
Yes.
wasn't, she didn't bring it. I just said,
Yeah.
what other building is
Yeah.
ever, that,
So,
so it wasn't like it would be an immediate
did-
solution, but I thought, it's not a bad idea, actually, if it ever
Did
happened.
she say though why downstairs was good?
She said there's
Benefits
things that you
of-
can do down there. There's room, for instance, for a dark room. Is there already a dark room down there? I don't know, maybe. But there are,
There isn't one today, but they could
I
carve
guess
out
because
space
it
and
has
do
some
that.
internal, I don't know, so.
I mean, you got a lot of walls, low ceilings, it's all different floor heights, it's different rooms, it's
Okay.
So
most
it's
of,
not handicap
yeah, it
friendly?
is.
No, but if you got different heights.
It's ramps.
Oh,
You can.
No, it is
you can-
handicap
yeah.
accessible. There's a elevator that goes down to it, plus there are ramps everywhere, wherever there are different.
But you'd need, I mean, one of the goals originally 15 years ago was to get to a single building because you could, in theory, reduce some costs with personnel. And you still need more people down there because there's so many little rooms and things. And I don't know, I wouldn't want to be trying to study when they're playing pickleball upstairs in the gym.
Bide our time.
so, but the bottom line is that the presentation boards are on hold or tabled for the current time. Okay, so we're gonna take that as.
Do we want to take that off the agenda or keep it on here as sort of a placeholder?
You can add it back in when we need it. I don't think.
Yeah, I
need
think
it
we
for a
can
while.
take it
We'll take it off for now.
off because we're always going to touch base with the strategic planning.
I'll leave that on then and take E off.
Yeah, so, okay.
It's really the firehouse that knocked everything out of the water. Everything was on track. And
Yeah.
if we would be voting on that as a new
Mhm.
project, but that just kind of, and then with all of the economic issues going on right now, it's just
Yeah.
not the
Yeah.
right environment to
Yep,
try to push for it.
okay. Let's see, we already discussed cuts to IMLS, so, it's not as dire as it first sounds. So, that's good news. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. Does anyone have any new business?
I have something that I was thinking of. I was reading the article on the new director for Youth and Family Services, and he said that he was interested in meeting with other groups and organizations, and I wasn't sure if this was a good time to, connect with him, and, maybe he has some fabulous ideas that we haven't thought of
Well,
yet.
actually, I met him, he's part of that community conversation.
Okay.
So Tony brought him to the last
Mhm.
meeting, because she's retiring.
Yes.
And so she brought him so that, and introduced him to that group. And you met him too, probably. So he has some good ideas, and sure, I think
Just keep that.
it's a good way for him to get to know our community.
And to know the library.
And to know the library,
The
yeah.
value of it, so. Okay.
He lives in Colchester, but right on the East Hampton edge of Colchester, so not far away.
All right, so, anything else, any other new business? How about our audience of citizens?
You have Mary as attending, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nope, nothing. I did get an email from Judith Leach, but it's nothing to do with the board meeting, so nope.
Okay. All right. So anything else? Does anyone?
The only thing I have is I will not be at the next two meetings. I will be out of state, so someone will have to take minutes.
Some-
June, July, I can probably do one of them.
I may not be here for July's meetings. But
Do we have a
Haven't
July
we in
meeting?
the past, I think we've not had the
It's
July meeting in
scheduled.
the past with schedules. I mean, we can look and see if there's anything urgent, but I think last year we didn't have July meeting.
No,
If
that's why I
remember
think it's in
correctly.
red, because
I
just.
think I'm also potentially
All
out of
right.
town and I would have to dial in.
All right, so we'll keep an eye on that, and depending on what happens, you know, with the budget and all that kind of thing, hopefully we can all give ourselves a vacation.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I do have to say before we close that I also won't make next month's meeting, so I'm sorry about that.
All right. So, all right, we'll just say we'll see who gets voluntold that they're taking notes. All right, well, if there's no objection, I'd like to adjourn this meeting. All righty.
I just got home from St.
That was
Louis the
good.
day before.
Say it again?
I'll just have gotten back from
Thank
St.
you,
Louis.
Mary, for
Oh my
Ooh,
God.